Welcome to the Thoughtful Leader podcast. My name is Ben Brearley. I'm a leadership coach and the founder of Thoughtful Leader. The Thoughtful Leader podcast is all about short, sharp leadership advice because thoughtful leadership is good leadership. Welcome to episode 261 of the Thoughtful Leader podcast. In this episode, I'm going to take a look at some of the reasons why people say they hate their boss and what we can do with that information to obviously be a better boss than that. So let's get into this episode right now. Now, if you spend any time on the internet looking at work-related topics and forums or places like Reddit, you'll find a bunch of people who hate the boss. Boss bashing is something that many employees traditionally like to do. In the old days, they used to call it working for the man, and being told what to do over time, I think, has built up a degree of resentment for leaders over the years. Now, in this episode, I thought I'd take a look at the common reasons for hating the boss and, of course, what we can do differently in light of this information. So many years ago, command and control was the leadership flavor of the day. Factory workers and coal miners never had a great deal of input into their working conditions. It was all do what I say or we'll find someone else to do it. Now, the rich people at the top told the managers what to do, and then the managers told the frontline workers what to do. Now, people don't really like being told what to do, but early on there was little choice. Times have, of course, changed. There are many choices of professions and obviously a huge number of industries out there. Now, in the early 1800s, unions started to be formed to put the spotlight on workers' rights and to try to make sure people were being treated fairly. Now, some people can work remotely because a lot of work is now what they call knowledge work and can be done from almost anywhere. We now have greater visibility of what different companies are doing. We have more choices as to where we'd like to work. Now, all of these factors, along with progress in general about improving human rights, means that in general we now tend to treat people more fairly and respectfully than ever before. But I believe the lingering spectre of this command and control leadership still remains and has left an overall negative impression of leaders amongst many people. Of course, being direct and directing people what to do is not always a bad thing, and there's a related post that I think you should read if you're interested in that topic about directive leadership and 4 situations when you should be using it. That will be on the show notes page, which for this episode will be thoughtfulleader.com/261. So many people hate the boss, but you can be a leader who helps to sway opinions in a more positive direction. And if you're listening to this episode, then it's a good chance that you're already doing some good things. So now I'm going to take a look at some of the common reasons for these negative opinions and what we can do about it. Now, the first one is that the boss is out of touch. Now, it's common knowledge that micromanagement is a bad thing. So we don't want to be all up in our team members' businesses. We want to give them freedom to operate and do their jobs without watching over their shoulders. But if we go too far and become a hands-off boss, people may perceive us as being out of touch or not wanting to get involved in the dirty work. So what this means is there's a tension here for many leaders. We want to provide autonomy, which of course is huge for motivation, but we don't want to lose touch. People tend to hate the boss when they don't understand the work of the team or aren't aware of what's happening. So to avoid this problem, you might try spending some time with the team while they work so you can observe the struggles and positive aspects that happen. You'll also want to set up regular time with each individual, if you haven't got it already, to hear what they have to say. Now, you might also pay attention to trying to keep your hand in. That is, you need to keep up to date with industry trends and try to bring them into your team. You might even keep a little of the doing work to yourself so you maintain some of your relevant skills. Now, this last point about keeping some of the doing work can seem a little counterintuitive because we often tell leaders that they need to delegate more. So why would we get them to keep doing the work? Well, in my view, this can help us to maintain some credibility because we still use some of the skills that our team respects. Of course, the higher you go in the organization, the less you'll be able to use this particular strategy, but it can be a useful thing to try to keep in touch with what's going on in your industry from a technical perspective. Now, a good rule of thumb for me is to be close enough to the work to know what's going on, but not so close that you are often getting involved in all the details. Now, just from my background, I used to be a software developer many years ago, and I understand how to build websites and how to code and all that stuff. Obviously, I don't do any of those things anymore, but I sort of understand the industry. I understand how that sort of stuff works, even though I'm not using the latest technologies anymore and I'm not doing that stuff day to day at all. But that helps me to lead technical people because they know that I know what they're talking about, even without knowing all the details. So that's the sort of thing I'm talking about. And there's a related article here about how much technical expertise should you have to lead your team. You can check that out on the show notes page as well. The second thing I've noticed is that people hate the boss because they make pointless changes. And if you've ever taken over a new team, you'll know the feeling. You can't just come in and do everything the same way, can you? Otherwise, you're not making an impact. You're not putting your stamp on the team. Now, some leaders feel the best way to show their value is to make sweeping changes to show that they're doing things. Now, I find it's helpful to resist this feeling to some degree. Yes, you want to make a positive impact on a new team. You want to improve the team. But we don't need to do this by criticizing or scrapping what has come before. We want to build on that and make it better. I find it helpful to acknowledge the contributions of previous leaders or team members in a team, because remember, when you criticize the way a team works, you're indirectly criticizing the people who were part of the team before you started. So it's worth pointing out the positive things that you can see the team doing and to keep them where possible. Then you want to get input from the team to understand the pain points, the things that people are unhappy about. Be sure to understand what the team members think rather than just basing everything on your own previous experience. Then work with the team to fix issues or make positive improvements. Now, some people will say, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, while this has some merit, you should still be trying to make improvements. People learn and grow when a team improves, and one of the important parts of leadership is helping your people to get better. Instead of making sweeping changes, aim for incremental improvements. Build on the good things and make them better, where you and the team believe they will add the most value. You can leave some things the same, especially if improving them won't lead to a major payoff. And what you're after here is bang for your buck with your improvements. And there's a related article you can read about team improvements and why 5 reasons and why smart leaders love it. There's a related article about team improvement and 5 reasons smart leaders love it. I'll put that in the show notes page as well. thoughtfulleader.com/261 was that address. And while you're at it, if you think I can support you with coaching, then please get in touch with me through the show notes page. There's an application there that you can submit, and for some people, I'm able to provide a complimentary coaching session so they can see what it's like to work with me. And if you don't apply, we'll never know. So try that out if you are interested. Okay, the third thing I notice is some bosses try to be the boss really hard. And in my opinion, the hardest part of leadership is managing yourself, which includes your own fears, insecurities, and emotions. Now, these are the things that will trip you up if you're not careful. When I see a leader come in and try to impose their authority on a team, I see a leader who is insecure and fearful of losing control. So what I suggest is doing the opposite. You feel like you need to bark orders and tell people what to do? So instead of doing that, ask them for their opinion instead. You might feel like you need to make all the decisions. Well, how about asking people what they think is a good idea and use their input to help you? When people behave or perform badly, it's natural to feel frustrated, and sometimes you'll want to yell at someone. But how about sitting down with them and calmly asking them what's going on instead? Our instincts have been hardwired over many thousands of years, but these instincts don't really help us in many work situations. So try going against yourself and see what happens. And I talk more about this in episode 186. If you haven't checked that one out already, it is called Could Doing the Opposite Be Good for Your Leadership? So check that one out too. Now, another thing I've noticed is people hate the boss when they don't communicate. There's an old saying about employees being like mushrooms because they are kept in the dark and fed bullshit. Apologies for the blasphemy there. Now, in other words, leaders don't tell them what's going on. Now, some leaders believe that certain information is above the pay grade of many employees. They think that information should be provided on a need-to-know basis. Being involved in the team and the workplace helps to provide team members with a sense of purpose. So when we shut down communication, we make them feel like they don't matter. Now, open and honest communication is important. In fact, Kouzes and Posner, which I've talked about before, they found that the top leadership quality people look for is honesty. So create multiple regular communication channels for your people, including team forums and one-to-one. So be as honest as you can be. As a leader, you'll occasionally have access to information that shouldn't be shared openly, such as information about pending restructures or confidential employee information. There is a useful tip I once heard from neuroscientist and philosopher Sam Harris, and that was to change our wording to improve our honesty rather than telling the white lies that we often do. For example, you might say to someone, well, I can't tell you that. But it's actually not true if you do have access to information. We can tell people anything we know by opening our mouths. Instead, you could try something like, I don't feel comfortable telling you that information. Now, this is a really subtle difference, but the second phrase is actually honest, even if it doesn't involve telling everyone everything you know. And there's a related article here about honest leadership, how to bring it more often and why it matters. You can read more about that by clicking the link on the show notes page again. Now, another thing I hear commonly from disgruntled people is managers don't do anything. And we all know that's probably not true. And if you're listening to this, you're probably doing stuff quite a lot. Now, what they really mean is either they don't know what the boss is doing or that what the boss is doing doesn't seem to be that important. Now, it's easy to believe these things because team members are often busy doing the work while the leader is performing people management tasks, reporting, or dealing with stakeholders outside of the team. In many cases, employees wouldn't even really know the impact of what the manager is doing. Now, it can be useful to communicate to your team members what you are doing and why it matters. And while you shouldn't need to justify yourself, raising awareness within the team can improve your credibility and help you to appear as a valuable asset for the team rather than a management overhead. You might also try delegating some of your tasks to team members, both to help them develop leadership skills, but also so they gain an understanding of what is involved in a leader's role. This additional visibility can help team members to appreciate what a leader does, which can go a long way to breaking down entrenched negative beliefs about what leaders do all day. And the last one that I come across quite often is that the boss is unpredictable. One of the key ingredients for trust is reliability and consistency. So if you're calm one day and yelling the next, people start to get a little bit anxious. Or if you say one thing, then change your mind the next week, people don't know what to expect. So the best way to become more predictable and consistent is to slow down and give yourself space. Stressed leaders are scattered, unfocused leaders. So we want to take breaks, we want to schedule time for important work and focus on your top 3 priorities rather than going for 5 or 10. Now, there's really so much to say on this topic to set yourself up for success from a time management or stress perspective. I'll refer to a bunch of other resources on the show notes page that I've written or had podcast episodes about over the years. So I'll link those in the show notes page. I won't mention them right now, but you can go there if you think that you could benefit from getting a bit more organized and making it so that you are more likely to show up in a positive way for your team. So bashing the boss has been a favorite pastime of employees for many years, but it will take work to eliminate the negative stereotypes that leaders have attracted. Now, we don't want to add fuel to the fire of critical employees. Instead, let's provide them with fewer reasons to hate the boss. Then we can hold them accountable more easily, knowing that we've done our part, and then they can do theirs. So I'm interested in your comments here. In your experience, what other reasons have you heard for hating the boss? Let me and all the thoughtful leaders know in the comments on the show notes page, thoughtfulleader.com/261. And while you're at it, if you haven't already, I would love it if you could leave a positive review for this podcast, if you like it, of course. You can do that on the show notes page as well. So thank you for listening. I appreciate you taking the time and spending that time to try to get better at leadership. I'll be back next time.